All right, y'all, so Chapter 9, Section 5, Chapter 9, what about a limited liability company? So let's start off with this quote. The will to prepare to win is more important than the will to win. Preparing usually means doing those kinds of things that failures don't like to do. It means studying and learning. It means reading books, going to seminars. It means not being afraid to corner experts and ask foolish questions. Robert G. Allen, author, Creating Wealth. Oh shit, I have this right here. I'm gonna read that. That's right, Robert. That's beautiful. Case study 17, Jennifer and her son Ted. Jennifer and her son Ted were perplexed. They were about to purchase land in a growing area, but they had no idea how to hold the property. They had been advised by one person that a C corporation should hold it. Another said an S corporation would work best. A third suggested a limited partnership. Others suggested a business trust, a land trust, joint tenancy, or tenancy in common. Jennifer did not know there were so many ways to hold one piece of property. Finally, they heard about a limited liability company, a new entity that people were using to hold real estate. They learned that in an LLC, limited liability company, the shareholders or interest holders were called members, the officers were called managers, and what was akin to the articles of incorporation and bylaws in a corporation were called, respectively, the articles of organization and operating agreement. They learned of some of the basic advantages and decided to investigate further. Key points. Like a corporation, LLCs offer limited liability to all parties. Like a partnership, LLCs can be taxed as a partnership with a flow-through of income. LLCs offer a great deal of flexibility and can be tailored to meet the parties' needs. Jennifer and Ted liked what they heard about LLCs, but they had liked some of the features that other entities offered as well, so they decided to analyze the various choices according to the features each offered. Number 1, limited liability asset protection. Limited liability asset protection. Both LLCs and corporations shield their members or shareholders from liability beyond the amount of their initial contribution. In a limited partnership, the general partner is liable, although a corporation or LLC can be used to shield such exposure. In terms of asset protection, like a limited partnership, the creditors of members can only reach a member's interest through a charging order. Creditors of the LLC itself can only reach the LLC's assets, which is why assets are frequently segregated among various LLCs. All right, taxation. Number 2. Both partnerships in LLCs feature flow-through taxation, whereby profits are taxed not at the entity level, but rather on the individual's return. An individual receives a K-1 distribution from the partnership or LLC and reports that amount as gain. A C corporation, on the other hand, is taxed first at the corporate level, and again when dividends are distributed at the individual level. Of course, corporate tax in a C corporation can be minimized by paying salaries and bonuses to reduce corporate profits. In addition, those preferring privacy may not want to use a C corporation with bearer shares so that ownership is not identified. Various strategies can be used to minimize corporate income before paying any federal, and if not a Nevada corporation, state tax. Like partnerships and LLCs, an S corporation is also taxed as flow-through entity. One must be mindful of the requirements in order to preserve the status. An S corporation can only have 75% or fewer shareholders, one class of stock, and no foreign citizens or trusts except living trusts as shareholders. Contrast this to an LLC, which can have 1,000 Isle of Man trusts and 1 million Chinese citizens as members, all receiving flow-through taxation. However, Jennifer and Ted discovered 2 problems with regard to the taxation of LLCs. First, if an operating business such as a video store or manufacturing company is run as an LLC, the income reported on your K-1 may be subject to self-employment tax. The theory is that if you receive that income as a salary, you would have to pay such tax, so it will be taxed that way when it flows through the LLC to you. But for real estate, which Jennifer and Ted wanted somehow to hold, there was no LLC self-employment tax assessment. The second problem once again involved California. The state imposes a surtax on LLC gross revenues in excess of $250,000. The surtax is $500 at the minimum level and goes up to $4,500 for gross income on $5 million and above. Jennifer and Ted thoroughly enjoyed visiting California, but never wanted to do business in the state. So the surtax remained a problem only for those millions who lived there. California's a bitch. 3, flexibility. The operating agreement in an LLC can be tailored to suit the simplest to the most complex business structures and manageable. Various classes of voting and non-voting membership can be used, as well as scheduling distributions according to contract or later agreement instead of ownership. Conversely, in partnership agreements and in corporate articles and bylaws, such flexibility is not found. Distributions are made according to ownership percentages. A body of law exists regarding the meaning and operative effect of corporate articles and bylaws and partnership agreements, and it does not provide for the free form and flexible distribution of monies. Nonetheless, having a body of law with over 200 years of cases defining and interpreting corporate and partnership actions is not a bad thing. It provides a comforting measure of certainty and understanding for future users of the corporate and partnership forms of business. LLCs are so new in use that they do not come with an established body of law. As an example, there are no judicial decisions on what requirements there may be for piercing the LLC veil, and because very few cases have been reported, it may be decades before there is a uniform body of laws for LLCs. So a downside on using an LLC is that you are a pioneer. A chance does not exist that your intended use may be interpreted differently by a court at a later date. Not everyone wants to be a pioneer. So a downside on using an LLC is that you are a pioneer. A chance does not exist that your intended use may be interpreted differently by a court at a later date. Oh shit, yeah, it's for real. They could just make up their own, whatever they want. So number 4, management control. A manager can be appointed by the members to manage the LLC to ensure that majority members do not remove a non-owner manager or a manager with a limited member interest. So a manager can be appointed by the members to manage the LLC to ensure that majority members do not remove a non-owner manager or a manager with a limited member interest. Separate classes of voting and non-voting membership can be created. As such, as with a limited partnership, those holding less than a majority interest can still control the entity. Number 5, family transfers. Number 5, also similar to a limited partnership, discounts are allowed on the transfer of an LLC interest. This is because the person receiving the gift may be restricted from transferring their interest and from participating in management of the LLC. Such restrictions reduce the marketability of the LLC interest, thus reducing the value of the gift and justifying the discount. Parents may then transfer an LLC interest worth $14,250 and factoring in a 30% discount, treat it as a $9,975 gift, thus avoiding a gift tax payment on gifts over $10,000. Over an 8-year period of $114,000 in discounted interest can be gifted free of tax versus only $80,000 through the gifting of other non-discounted interests. Okay, so let's read that again. Parents may transfer an LLC interest worth $14,250 and factoring in a 30% discount, treat it as a $9,975 gift, thus avoiding a gift tax payment on gifts over $10,000. Over an 8-year period of $114,000 in discounted interest can be gifted free of tax versus only $80,000 through the gifting of other non-discounted interests. After reviewing all the advantages and disadvantages, Jennifer and Ted made a decision. They decided to hold the land as an LLC for the following reasons. They liked that limited liability was afforded to all parties. If they used a limited partnership, they would have to pay to form another corporation or LLC to protect the general partner. They liked that discounts were involved in the transfer of LLC interest. Jennifer contemplated gifting some of her ownership over to Ted, and a 30% discount was not only significant but could not be received if they had used a corporation or a joint tenancy or tenancy in common. The taxation of an LLC worked for them. As a holder of real estate, the LLC was not subject to self-employment tax as was an operating business. And upon sale of the land, they would be taxed only once at the personal level. The lack of case law on LLCs did not deter them. They will not be operating in active business for which litigation may arise. Oh, they own like a piece of land though. I know litigation may not arise. Conclusion: LLCs offer the advantage of limited liability, asset protection, flow-through taxation, and discounted transfers of wealth. LLCs offer flexibility when creating the operating agreement, which can be tailored to suit the simplest and the most complex business structures. LLCs may not be appropriate for operating businesses due to all distributions being treated as self-employment income subject to self-employment. Okay, LLCs may not be appropriate for operating businesses due to all the distributions being treated as self-employment income. So yeah, you may not be appropriate for an operating business such as owning a restaurant, manufacturer, due to all the distributions being treated as self-employment income, subject to self-employment tax. That self-employment tax is like 39%, so fuck that. All right, that was the end of section 5, chapter 9. This section goes to 166, so actually no, it goes to 165. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 pages. Then I'm gonna go hang out with my daughter. Peace, y'all.